We're not a morning person.
When you take over as president?
Probably in May when she gives birth.
Oh, May.
I know. Like, unexpectedly, I'm so happy for you. I'm happy, but very scared for myself.
The president's not that bad.
No.
You
Aaron's here.
How's it going?
Good.
Hey,
how are
how are you,
you?
Aaron?
I'm Eric.
Hey, nice to meet you.
You as well.
Welcome.
How's the day? Where do you want me?
Let's see, because we have it like this. You can come right next to me.
Okay.
And I'll probably have Hillary there. I'm
Cool.
trying to figure out where.
All right.
How are you?
Doing good. It's been a busy
Oh my
couple of days. I was in Nebo yesterday for the functional communication training that you all put on, this you put on.
Oh, how'd it go?
It was great. Like, really good representation
Okay, good.
across the state.
Good.
So that was fun.
I had to put on my MTSS fall training yesterday.
Oh, how'd that go?
We're really well. It was our first time trying to let the Southern LEAs attend virtually.
Cool.
So that was fun. But
Do they feel like
I think they
like-
liked it.
Yeah, I mean, I think just like having the access to that, right, is like so important for them.
And I tried to make sure that they have something that they can actually enjoy and it's accessible, because
Yeah,
that's the biggest gripe usually is it's so hard for us to get up there, and then coming to them, bringing my entire team is a lot.
it's a lot. Yeah, I mean, it's expensive one way or another, right? Just the travel costs.
Here everyone is.
Are we ready to get 2 more people?
Hillary, yes.
Okay.
And
So, Aaron, what do you do?
I'm a faculty at the U in school psychology.
Oh,
So I'm a psychologist, behavior analyst.
mhm,
I wear a lot of hats around,
yes, you do.
but my primary role is that. Yeah. How about you?
speech language pathologist.
Cool. Do you practice in a clinic setting in the schools?
Schools and private practice.
Cool. What district do you work in?
Fox Elder.
Fox Elder. Cool. So you had to travel pretty far today.
I had to travel.
Yeah.
Like, it's pretty far. It's all relative.
It's all relative. That's true. It's Utah. Yeah.
That's true.
So is that Fox Elder? Is that the district? Fox Elder.
Fox
district?
Elder District. And
Okay.
so then I work in Brigham City.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And do you live in Utah? Or do you live in Idaho?
Excellent question.
Yeah.
I live in Utah, so
Okay.
I live in Nibley, just outside of Logan.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I was talking to someone. They were saying they work in Cache, Logan County, and they live in Idaho and
Yeah.
do commute. And it's like a little bit easier, I think.
Well, depending on what school that they're working at.
Yeah.
So I did the opposite. I worked in Idaho and I made that travel, and it was like a 45-minute
Oh, wow.
one way. And after, what really happened was then we adopted our kids, and it was Spanglish at home.
Okay.
And so my wife's like, "Do you think you could find something a little closer?"
Yeah. Yeah, that makes
I
sense.
said, "Sure,
Yeah,
let's give that a try."
sure. It's worked out pretty well.
I succeeded. So,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
That's
it worked
great.
out well.
Yeah. And how long have you worked with them?
Well, so I've been a speech language pathologist. This is my 11th year.
Oh, cool.
I worked 2 years in Idaho, and then I worked for 5 years for Logan School District, and then now 4 years in Fox Elder.
Cool. And you feel like, is that kind of like home for now?
For now.
Yeah.
For now. We'll
Yeah.
see what happens.
Yeah, totally. It's good to be open.
Everyone likes to look for something not necessarily better, but just
Sure.
different.
Yeah. Different,
So,
better. Yeah.
at some point, I would like to. I'd like to see myself at a university setting at some
That's cool.
point,
Yeah.
but I wouldn't be able to instruct because just masters. Not
Sure.
that that's a just. But
Yeah, but if you're teaching masters, they have to have the PhD.
Right.
Right.
They really like that.
Yeah, they do.
I get it.
Yeah, right. Makes sense. There must be some like undergraduate communication courses.
Yeah, there's like undergraduate, or I could do like the clinical.
Hi,
the clinical
welcome,
graduate.
Cecily.
Hello.
Yes.
Welcome. Come sit.
The options are still kind
I
of,
had multiple emails about different
especially for
roles, so
academia. I
it's
mean, that's like it's not going anywhere.
I know they just
Matter,
been
like,
juggling last
again,
week, and they're like,
practicing.
now you're in a different room.
Exactly.
Great.
Yeah.
So you found it. Welcome.
Yeah.
I know some,
Thanks.
Glad you
that's
could
what they
join
prefer.
us.
I think it's people who are like ready to do research. Hey, how's it going? I'm Aaron.
Good. Hi, Erin.
Hey.
Cecily.
Nice
to
to meet you.
I'm Eric.
Hi, Eric. Nice to meet you, Cecily.
Yeah,
All right.
that's fun though. I'm biased. I like the academic setting too. It's fun to teach.
I know one more friend. Trying to see if she's attending virtually.
I'm with a grad student right
Oh,
now.
Yeah, I
cool.
didn't
So
know.
you're like a
if
prep
one of
team
us
student.
emailed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's super fun. It's like the best
That
part.
is a good time.
You're right.
How come you're not at the university? I'm like, I don't know. I ask myself that all the time.
Were you able to find
It's like one
parking?
more
and
step.
sort
Oh, yeah.
through- Okay, good.
That's the PhD. Just the PhD.
It's always fun.
Yeah.
Parking at USC.
Oh, yeah.
All right, one more friend, Hillary.
Okay.
Have you got a good response from people being interested, or is it?
Yeah, it's School Psychology Awareness Week, so we're
Yeah,
doing a
we'll
big
show up.
yeah awareness advocacy.
Mm.
It's a busy time of year too.
Yeah.
Really
So I'm going to record it.
Yeah.
You know, UAS is trying to get better at that, and now with our coalition, we're like, hey, let's have online learning opportunities where we can kind of get together. Because as our state is growing, I think there's an interest in learning, like, how do you work on multidisciplinary teams?
Yeah.
So I thought this would be a good way to kind of help with that need.
Mhm.
So I'll facilitate. We'll introduce ourselves, talk about where we are, training experience. I'm getting a lot of feedback from the field, like they don't know what our training looks like.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Gotta like make sure we're reputable.
I know, and you have a lot of people coming into the school setting,
Totally.
and so
Yeah. Good for
I'm
them in their due diligence. And we're qualified. Oh man.
like, are you licensed to be
Yeah.
here? So yeah, I get a lot of those questions too. So
So what are we doing today? I don't.
it's a panel. So I will facilitate. I'll ask questions. So we're going to introduce ourselves, talk about our
Is
training.
this going statewide?
This
Or
is
what are we?
just school, because it's a coalition for school-based specialists.
Okay.
So we're focusing on just who works in the school setting and then how you collaborate. And I'll ask questions about your experience and what that looks like for you. Because we all know going into your first role, you're like, I got this. And then you work on a multidisciplinary team, you're like, oh, I don't have this. No, they didn't have this conversation. So, because as a school psychologist and I'm a behavior analyst, I know a lot about, school psychology, special education, and behavior. But when it comes to functioning within those multidisciplinary teams, it's a nuance.
Everybody plays a part.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody plays a
Oh,
part.
yeah. It's very nuanced. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, for sure.
You learn.
Yeah. I'm glad we're doing this. So this will be a nice offering, I think. So
Okay. I hope so.
yeah.
What do you guys do?
I'm a speech language pathologist.
Oh, okay.
And I'm a life psychologist and board certified behavior analyst as well.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
both of you.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Okay.
But I'm on faculty at the University of Utah,
Yes.
so I guess I'm coming in from a somewhat I don't know, I have like a different perspective. too.
Yes.
So yeah,
Yeah.
not just a replication, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Yeah.
And I'm at the state board. Utah's move 5 for me. And I'll kind of get into that because I'm married. So in the Air Force, I move every 2 to 4 years.
Oh.
4 more to go.
One more to go.
4 more years in the Air
Yeah.
Force. Oh.
So maybe 1 more move. We'll see.
Yeah. Hopefully the last one, right? You can like pick somewhere you really want at that point.
It'll be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't really get to pick though, I guess. They just
No, they kind of trying to match up your skills with the area you're going. So I know for here, they're like, oh, your husband's a peds primary care provider. And Utah has lots of children. So let's go there.
Yes.
Mm,
So-
yeah.
But I don't know, our mission is changing right
Uh-huh.
now. Yeah, so we'll see. His job might change a little bit.
Stuff. Does he primarily serve like Hill Air Force Base? Okay.
He's one of 3 primary care providers.
Wow.
Oh,
Three. You
one
must
of
have a huge
3?
caseload. Oh my goodness.
It's massive. He sees about 20 patients a day.
Wow.
Wow.
And he's really trying to squeeze in. Our population in Utah, you can't squeeze in,
Yeah.
especially with the mental health needs, like 15 minutes.
It's not even enough. Wow.
He has to come home and just decompress. And
Yeah.
he's busy. So we were on vacation last week because he was
Oh,
like,
good for
honey,
you.
I need a vacation.
Yeah.
Let's do that. So
Where'd you go?
Vancouver.
Fun.
Yeah.
Mm.
So I'm going to close the door and get us started. I tried to reach out to Hillary. We'll see. Maybe she'll join us later. So I just want to welcome everyone to today's panel. This is our first panel for the Utah Coalition for School-Based Specialists. So welcome if you're joining online. And I will go ahead and introduce myself. I am Casey Dupart. I am the Utah Association for School Psychologists President-elect. And I'm also at the State Board of Education. I'm the multi-tiered system of supports project coordinator and specialist. And by training, I'm a school psychologist, board certified behavior analyst.
Hey, I'm Aaron Fisher. I'm on faculty at the University of Utah in the school psychology program. I'm a licensed psychologist by training and a board certified behavior analyst, and I'm the past president of the Utah Association for Applied Behavior Analysis.
I'm Eric Dutson. I'm a speech language pathologist. So who else? I guess there's no I'm guessing. I'm the president of the Utah Speech and Hearing Association.
Yes. I'm Cecily Rawl. I'm past president of the Utah School Nurses Association. I'm a school nurse in the Granite School District. I'm also on the State Board of Nursing.
Awesome. So where are we all supporting? I'm at the State Board of Education. Aaron, where are you?
I'm at the University of Utah, and then I work with 5 different districts across the state of Utah.
And Utah ABA.
And the Utah Association for Public.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah. 2 different hats.
Yeah, lots of hats. I also support with the Utah ABA School Collaboration Committee. I chair that as well.
Just where am I at?
Mm-hmm.
So I work in the Fox Elder School District, and then I also run a small private practice.
Awesome. So you're busy as well.
Yes.
Thank you for coming. Okay, so tell us a little bit about your training for those. I know there's a lot of new specialists coming into Utah. So there's a lot of questions I know for us at the State Board of like, what are you licensed in? What's your scope of practice? So kind of tell us a little bit about what that looks like.
Oh, good question.
I know.
So to become a speech language pathologist, it just requires going through undergraduate studies in communicative disorders, and then you master in audiology or speech language pathology. Hopefully, you go through an accredited school,
Mm-hmm.
and you just, oh my goodness, it's so much fun.
Yeah.
All the rigors of the
Mm-hmm.
schooling. You get a minimum of 450 hours of clinical
Mm-hmm.
supervised training, and then afterwards you get the clinical fellowship year, where you're supervised by your mentoring the new clinical fellowship
Mm-hmm.
person, and you're just having a good time. You're just treating and diagnosing.
Mm-hmm.
That sort of thing.
Awesome. How about you? What does that look like for you, training and?
So school nursing in this state,
Mhm.
we have 2-year nurses and 4-year nurses. So ADNs and bachelor prepared. So 2 years of training or 4 years of training, a bachelor prepared. So, and we also in the state of Utah have school nurses that are public health based and then that are district based. So we have two different entities, because as school nurses, we play 2 roles. We're community health experts as well as public health experts in the school setting as a medical expert in the school setting. So we play a lot of roles.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. So for me, I'm a licensed school psychologist, and like as you mentioned, you got undergrad and you have master's, so you go through a program and there's a 1,200-hour internship, and let me know because it's some time. The 300-hour practicum that you complete as well, and then you're usually licensed by state. So I'm licensed by the state of Utah, and then for the board certification, remind me, 1,500 hours, and mine was a combination of hours for ABA supervision. I did practicum as well as individual supervised supervision, and then you take a very comprehensive exam for the BCBA, and just like with your professions, you have CEUs you have to do and renew. And did I miss anything?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything to add for programs. I think the cool thing about our program at the University of Utah is we offer the EDS level and the PhD level, so we can have trainees who want to become clinical researchers or do clinical leadership, but also we have people who want to be out in the schools. There's a really, I think, attractive offer to be an educational specialist too, which would have some unique extra practicum work, things like that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's really helpful.
Yeah.
So why do you think it is valuable to work collaboratively across multidisciplinary teams? And I'll have the questions out for you.
Oh, cool.
I can start out with that. I think the team approach, we can provide so much more diverse entities for kids. We approach it in all sorts of different ways. You guys, mental health wise, you and I medical wise, and for kids to be successful in school, I think they need both of these. Mental health, we all know, is just becoming such a huge issue with our kids.
Yes.
So you guys are invaluable. I think at this point, all of us just working together to help the kids be as successful as they can be.
Yeah. And like as I mentioned before, this is move 5 for me. So I've been able to kind of support in Italy, Maryland, Texas, North Carolina, and now here. And working with you two, oh my goodness, you were on my team. Every referral, I always wanted to know. And with my evaluations, I always wanted to know, okay, so what does their history look like? Do you know the parents, social workers, outside behavioral analysts, and RBTs? Like, you want that full picture. And I found that my interventions were so much better. And you're less likely to make snap decisions because you have so many stakeholders kind of, have you thought about this? And have you met the parents? And I had their older sibling, and what about, so I really was dependent on my team, and I would not make a lot of decisions without first thinking about the problem solving with them first.
Totally. I mean, there's so much like collaboration needed. I feel like I don't know anything. Like when I go into work on these cases, and like, I can bring my expertise or whatever I think I have, and then you kind of realize that there's this huge interaction of the family and all the other circumstances, and if we're not considering those things, I just feel like we're not even really trying. And on some of the cases that I'm currently working on, we're really making explicit efforts to include all the team members, all the related service providers, everyone who could potentially impact this child. And that's where we see the outcomes being driven for success. And it's hard, right? Like, it's like purposeful. We have to make sure that there's good communication and all the steps that go into it. But we know it can be successful, and I think the hard part for me is like we have to like convince people to still work collaboratively, despite everyone like saying they want to.
It's so much better than it used to be.
Yeah, it's so true.
We are getting way better at working as a team, I think, in the educational system. Because, like you said, we have the kid in the school for 7 hours, but all that other time outside of school counts too. So we have to account for that also.
Yeah. I'm thinking that collaboration is very, very important, because a lot of the times it doesn't really matter which area you're looking at. You're looking at just such a small slice of the pie, where you need to look at the whole child before really any diagnosis or anything else, or even placement should be considered. It's just like, we've got this small area. What does it look like from everyone else? And I think we're getting better, but there's still a lot of room for improvement as well.
I appreciate the point you made too, just like relatively speaking, like where we've come from, because I think it's important to recognize that and to celebrate those steps too, because it's been like the hard work of a lot of other people before us who are like, avant-garde, let's collaborate. Like, what's that going to be about? And now we have to like carry that torch, It's pretty cool. Yeah.
No, and to your point about you see one piece, I do a lot of trainings on supporting this and making sure we have that wraparound support, because usually whenever students or parents are concerned and it gets to us and we need an evaluation, sometimes they have outside support and you're not even aware of it. So just kind of pausing to think, okay, so you have an outside evaluation, can I look at it? You're working with a specialist, you're working with a behavior technician, what's your intervention look like? And I found that has really helped improve my teaming, which is having that conversation, because usually if you're moving, you're making quick decisions, but if I stopped and I asked those questions, I could say, I can kind of partner with you. We're doing the same thing. Let's do it together. Anything surprised you about working with a multidisciplinary team?
I think the biggest thing is we're stronger together than
Mhm.
we are as one entity apiece.
Yes.
I just don't think we can practice that way anymore. It's just, there's too many pieces of a kid and of a family for us to work individual. It works so much better collaborative.
Yeah, considering like the resource issues that like we're going to face when we're in schools, that's the only way I feel like we can really solve these problems, because everyone sort of can, the sum of all the parts is greater than, or the sum of the whole is greater than the parts. I guess would be opposite of that, but yeah, it's it's a lot stronger when they're together. And I think that was I guess like the surprising piece, not the I guess like affirming surprising in the sense that like, hey, if we do this stuff, like, look, this stuff will work, we can improve the outcomes, we can also improve the relationships among the adults in really profound ways, which usually is where the problem is, right? Like these people aren't working well together, and I love that, because then I think that really speaks to school cultures changing and school climate changing. Going back to like mental health stuff, I think that it all ties into it, and creates that community where people feel comfortable to talk about their problems and be like, I can't do this by myself.
Yes.
Like, I need some help around like medication management. I think we need a PRN at school. What should we do to be able to admit that and be vulnerable? That's really huge for the team.
I was just having a conversation around that because we're talking about cultural responsiveness, and one of the participants was like, how do I have these conversations, these really frank, difficult conversations? And another participant was like, you can't do it in the middle of the fire. So if you're having to suspend someone and you're like, hey, can I talk to you about your implicit bias real quick? That might not be the time, but that has kind of been surprising to me. It's like, this is such a huge part of my job and my responsibilities. And as a new school psychologist, I was like, oh wait, this is a part of what you need to do. So you need to add to your toolbox, and you need to improve your communication, because a lot of it is that communication. So rather than shooting that quick email, maybe you should probably go pop by their office and have that interaction, that one-on-one interaction, and that conversation. And definitely helping with, okay, so when is a good time to have this conversation and talk about disproportionality and discipline, and why are we jumping to special education evaluations here but not there, and why are we suspending these? But it takes building that relationship, which takes time.
Yeah, I think there's this desire to sort of like want to just do it, right?
Oh,
because it's like immediately feels better for the person who's talking, but it is more sophisticated, more nuanced if you can like hold it together and know the pragmatic time to collaborate with your team. Because no one wants to. Everyone I think wants to orient, right, and like be able to do that. I think that's a really important piece.
Oh yeah, and I'll find myself looking back like, if I had just taken a moment, I would have made a much better decision. Or thinking about your evaluations and certain eligibility categories, and you don't know because you're in the thick of it. And I've been in districts where I had 8 schools to myself, 4,700 kids, and then parents realize you're a BCBA, and so everyone has autism, and you're just and you're just moving, you're running, and then I'll think back to myself like, I wish I had waited and talked with someone before I made that decision, or shot that email. Emails get you all the time. That's what it feels like.
Better to talk in person. If you can.
Oh yes. And it takes time. And every time I do like trainings or have this conversation, people are like, Casey, who has time for that? I know it takes time up front, but it will save you time in the long term.
Yeah, it's like everything we're doing, right? Like if we can be purposeful on the front end, it can really help everyone be more efficient. Yeah.
And I was thinking about that with pre-service and for educators and training us before we get to the schools, because I feel like a lot of us aren't always trained to problem solve at this level. And so we were having that discussion prior to coming in here about, okay, so how do we support that before? Like, how do we talk about collaboration across multidisciplinary teams in pre-service? Because I don't know about you, but I don't remember. It was a lot of like special education, psychological assessments, but teaming and like your communication, like that could be a course in itself. And like, how do you communicate?
Depends on the school climate too. Because each school is different. School nurses in the state, we have multiple schools, and each school, the teams are entirely different. The way they handle the kids, the way they work with the kids. So I think for all of us to be a part of the team and get to know each other, as well as what is the school climate, how do we deal with kids in this arena as opposed to maybe a different school.
Absolutely.
Totally. And that's hard too, just being able to sort of like flip the switch from like functioning in one climate to another. It's really hard. And I know for my students particularly, that's when they're out doing the work, when they're having to go through different sites. It's a totally unique challenge. For them, emotionally, everything. There's just a lot that goes into it. But a good challenge. Yeah.
No, it's good. It's good because you have to learn what works for each environment and the leadership and their influence and the culture and that tone that they set. And you do because it's easier to just generalize across settings. Like, okay, just do this. But then you're recognizing that maybe that doesn't fit for that culture or that demographic. And that's a lot of feedback I get from the field was, I didn't know that I needed to tailor this to my audience. And now I have all these issues, and if I could go back in time, I would tailor some of these policies for them specifically.
Right.
I'm like, well, you got to start where you are.
Yeah, hindsight's always 20/20, right?
It really is.
Yeah.
It really is.
I think.
Have you learned anything from working with your teams? Any takeaways from working with certain specialists and certain stakeholders?
I think the more that you work with your specialists and your teams, the more that you learn strengths and weaknesses, what's going to be positive for both team, student, school, and what is less effective.
Right.
But it takes that conversation and just asking questions and hoping that everyone's on board with answering questions and they're willing to collaborate. And I think most people are, but I think a lot of the time it's more of the how. I'm working 8 different schools. I'm working 2 or 3. You guys are working like 5, and we're all overloaded with just a caseload, and next IEPs are coming up, or just whatever it is there. But it is trying to find that time to just communicate. And I think that's probably the challenge that is just going to be there. But when you can do that, and you can have that email or that short person-to-person exchange, I think that there's large benefits that occur.
I did learn that my evaluations would so much smoother if I took the time to call the parents and explain the process, because I recognized that they didn't understand it. And I had parents that would tell me, you're the first school psychologist that called and explained this process to me, or for reeval, it's just, hey, this is me checking in for the reevaluation. And like, my child's in like the 10th grade, I've never had a school psych call me. And so understanding that, that collaboration across the school and home setting and beefing that up a little bit, scheduling time to meet with my team before those meetings. And we all know those meetings that are going to be a little difficult. So like, hey, let's meet like a day or maybe a week before and talk about our evaluations together. And okay, so what are your recommendations and how do we want to communicate this to parents? That was very helpful too. And then moving to Utah, I recognized the need to bridge across school and clinic, especially with our community ABA, and just kind of disarming a lot of that defensiveness. Because I feel like as specialists, the more credentials we get, the more complicated it gets. And I was at a national conference and a woman said she worked for a state education agency. She was like, that's my biggest challenge is getting all of these very credentialed people in a room and to disarm them and have them be vulnerable and problem solve together as a team. And that's been one of the biggest takeaways I've seen is having to build that relationship. It's okay, and leave your credentials at the door. We're going to problem solve together and talk about students, and this is a safe space.
I think one of the best things that I've seen is that there are a lot of overlap between the different fields, and where one ends, the other one can, not always, but can easily just pick up and carry on. And so I've seen that. I've seen that work well. I've also seen it backfire.
Oh yes.
But I'm happy about successes. So I mean that's it. But yeah, I mean there is that overlap, which is great.
I'm saying that too with a lot of mental health. You have a lot of different specialists, and I'm allowing people to kind of understand, like, there's a lot of overlap, and you don't need just this one. And I think there's just a lot of ignorance, honestly. It's like, I don't know what they do.
Yeah.
So we need to have more conversations like this. And I'm trying to get better as a state education agency to, like, let's create something so they know, like, a resource to go to, because we are growing, and there's a lot of just misinformation about what we do.
Yeah, and I think with the growth, we have some really cool opportunities to make some more explicit collaborations. Like I'm thinking, you mentioned school mental health, and school counselors, social workers, school psychologists. Everyone under the sun who does that work, we can get them together and have some really purposeful, impactful work happen, which is not always the case, that you have this sort of like opportunity. And I think to the extent we do that, we can have that success. I'm excited for it too. I think that would be cool.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And then, too, in kind of improving that conversation, even with our educators, our teachers, and our principals, allowing them to understand, like, there's some things you can do with supporting mental health.
Teachers,
and
everyone.
Yes, and, and having that conversation in pre-service before they get out, and they're contacting me because they're like, what? This is my job now. It's just having that conversation and empowering them. And that's something I've recognized. They just need the tools. Right. So if you empower people, they're more likely to be like, okay, I can do this, rather than that's the school psychologist's responsibility, or that's the school nurse, or can we call Erica because that's his domain. I don't feel comfortable there.
Well, I think as a team too, we can educate each other on what our roles are.
Yeah, totally.
Because if we don't do that, then we really don't know what each other can do.
Yes.
Not should do, but can do.
Yes.
Right.
Emphasis on the can.
Yeah.
Because you kind of assume, and I've been that school psych, I'm like, yeah, you know what I do. And everyone's like, no, I think you just test kids.
Right.
Or I think you have a kid on a couch in your office. I'm like, I wish. I'm testing a lot more than counseling. But, I've had to kind of teach myself how to do that anytime I move. Like, this is what I can do.
Yes.
And then I get a lot of feedback that, oh, I didn't know that. I had no idea the school psychologist. I didn't even know you were trained to do that.
Yeah.
So, just kind of educating each other on what our roles can look like.
Yeah.
That goes a long way.
Yeah, I think there's always like some hesitancy from everyone if you don't do that. Everyone's kind of looking around at each other like, are you going to do that? Is this with me?
Yeah.
And I think if we can just talk and everyone's like, we can do this together. And it may be, like the SLP is designing the speech and language program, and then the paraprofessional is implementing the program in the classroom with the PCBA or something like that. That's going to be a really effective collaboration as long as everyone realizes we're doing the same thing. We can approach it. But yeah, too many times I've seen where everyone's pointing at each other and being like, is it me who's doing this?
Right.
Do you all like help with those kind of that infrastructure building? Like, I know for me at the school, it's like I was very invested because I was a school psychologist, and like, let's get this system together.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you handle that within your current roles? Mm-hmm. Like, what your role looks like? How are you defining that? Are you structuring that?
Well, I think when I go to teams, I talk about medical issues.
Okay.
So it's pretty clarified. My role when I come to the team is my medical expertise and what's going on, what are the chronic illnesses in the school, how can we keep the kids safest at school, but overlapping with the school psych and the school social worker, if we have mental health issues, maybe how can we also get them into a medical provider if they're seeing an outside therapist that can not provide access to meds. How can we get a medical provider on board?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, and even in some of the programs I've worked in where we'll have nurses on staff, I mean that role is so critical because these are the people who can like really help when things get out of control.
Right.
If there's medication that's provided, things like that. And it's just nice to have that expertise because as much as I've taken like a biophysiological class, I'm in no way qualified to know all the ins and outs. And it's nice, it's refreshing, especially on these like high stakes pieces, whether it be speech or having nursing, whoever it may be. Like I don't want to evaluate like chew and swallow issues. I don't want to only with the speech right. In the same way, I think that it's so critical, and to the extent we can recognize like the contributions and how impactful they can be, And that's why for me, like I love interdisciplinary work, and I think I got a taste of that through clinical setting. So I have a pediatric feeding disorders clinic up at the U. We're going with young kids, picky eaters, and that was my sort of like introduction in grad school. So I almost was like, I didn't know anything else, and so that was really nice. But I think not everyone gets that opportunity, and it is exciting to see some of those things moving to schools.
Oh yeah, my husband's primary care provider, Pete's. And he did one of those, and he was just like, I had no idea, like the work that went into feeding kids. I was like, yes, welcome to my
Yeah, it's like really hard.
It's really hard.
It's super hard.
So hard.
And not only little kids,
Yeah.
big kids.
Yeah.
Yes.
Totally.
I'm finding more and more big kids have problems eating too.
Yeah, because those kids were probably young kids who never got treated, and then they just
That's
eat
right.
chicken nuggets, French fries, mac and cheese, and pizza, and it's like here we are.
Well, and then when you get big, when you're a little kiddo, maybe that does not make you gain weight. But
Sure.
when you get older,
Right.
you're a teenager, those kind of things
Right.
make you gain weight, and then you go to the opposite end of
Obesity.
eating disorders.
Right,
True,
totally,
true.
or other things. Yeah, totally. That left untreated piece is really huge. Yeah.
And having that palate, and I always tease one of my close friends. I'm like, you were one of those kids, because anytime we travel like out of the country, he struggles because he wants his French fries.
It's like, where's the closest
Yeah,
McDonald's?
I'm like, we will not be those Americans. You can't eat with me.
Like half the fun of traveling.
That's the food. And he's like, where's chicken?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Well, I think speech language pathologists have more of a hands-on
You really
approach,
do.
because we're diagnosing
Yes.
Yes.
and then we're treating. And so as far as like the IAP is concerned, like a lot of the parts of it, we're the implementators of that.
Yes.
You really are.
You really are.
So it's important that we collaborate with school sites and nurses, and especially with dietary needs and probably medication. But I really let the nurses that if they have the nurse, let them take care of it. But at least for the swallowing and those portions, it's we need to implement.
So how do you structure your role as speech language pathologist at your sites? Because I know educators usually, if we have you, we're happy you're there, and then we want you to do everything.
It's true.
So how do you how you define those boundaries?
That is it's a work in progress, and unfortunately there's no it depends on the SLP at that school
Right.
and how comfortable they are with collaborating and what they feel kind of comfortable doing. Myself, I like to just jump right in and see what I can do, and then I let them know what I can do and where like my limits are and where my scope of practice is and where it ends.
Yes.
And I think it's important for me so that the people that I work with, my team, they know where their boundaries are. I know where mine are.
Absolutely.
But that's me. That's what I do. And then I also do a lot of. I'd like to do more of it, but I'd like to see myself in the future just collaborating even with classroom teachers, to where we're doing more of the academic portions. But as it is right now, what it looks like is I'll do like a 5 to 7 minute pull out. So we're just right there in the hall. And so they're not missing. This is a few times a week, and then I just send them right back in. So they're not missing. It's only a day. They're only missing just a chunk of just in classroom.
Is that part of like special education, or that's in?
No, that's regular.
Awesome.
Regular
That
ed.
makes me happy.
So I'm doing good things. I'm trying to do good things.
You are.
But how great would it be if the teacher could collaborate with you and continue what you do in the hall for 7 minutes
Right.
in the classroom?
Totally.
So
That's the goal, right?
That is the goal. That's what I'm working
So Eric,
for.
I'm gonna reach out to you after this so you can model something.
It's great.
But I love
really,
that.
I've always wondered why
Yes.
that is not
Mm-hmm.
part of what is done with speech therapy is
Mhm.
continuing it, especially little kids. They have
Mhm.
one teacher.
Yes.
Now, when they're in secondary, it's very difficult.
Yes.
It
But
is. It is.
in elementary, they have one teacher.
Yeah, it's true. And so I've had experience even in the secondary setting. And yes, it does look a little bit different. And
Mhm.
hopefully by secondary setting, you've had that conversation with the student and parents, and you just said, we all can agree that they might have, or they do have, like an articulation situation. But, and I've had this conversation with them, and it's like, if you're not willing to work on it, come back to me when you are.
Mhm.
Yes.
And
That's
so
hard.
but it is, it's a very hard conversation, but I have it with them because it's important.
It
I
is.
don't want to keep doing the same drills they've been doing for like 6, 7, 8 years
Mhm.
and just say you're stagnating, you're just
Yeah.
plateauing.
And then, yeah.
What are we doing here?
Right.
Let's stop wasting your time.
Yeah. Because
So,
it impacts them too,
Come-
their self-efficacy, self-worth.
Right.
Drilling, yeah.
So just just come back to me. I want to work with you. I want to help you. Anyway, so that's what I do. But in the secondary setting, after I've had that conversation, I work with them, but I find myself working more with like the resource teachers in their classroom, and then we'll do more of a co-teaching at that point
Oh.
because the kids already in the classroom.
Mhm.
I'm not pulling them out for any reason.
Oh.
Mhm.
So I'm just there, and then we'll just kind of do a co-teaching where they're learning their school stuff. I'm like, that's great, but let's put this language component in it. And it works so well.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, how about this? It works so much better than
Mhm.
what has happened in other situations. I've had the teachers have commented, "Oh, this is really great. We're glad you're here." I'm like, me too.
Yeah.
That's what I've seen in secondary. They're so appreciative. They really are at that level. If you're still there, because I've worked in some states where they kind of try to wean off by 6th grade, and that's
And
heartbreaking.
it certainly is, because it
is.
shouldn't be that way.
I know.
But it is true. I
It is.
see that a lot.
Yeah.
It's unfortunately I would say that administration think common practice has been
Mhm.
to, well, all speech is a speech, and I'm trying to educate and say, no, there's a big word you're missing in between speech and pathology,
Mhm.
and that big component is language. And if you want to have your students excel in your sciences and your social studies and your math, you need that language component.
Yes, you
That's
do.
where it's built around.
Yeah. True.
It's interconnected. No, I believe you, and I would champion your cause. Aaron, how are you navigating boundaries? What does that look like?
I'm pretty explicit on the front end. I think everyone's time is really important, and I really try to make sure that everyone knows that we're purposeful when we're here. So we have a 30-minute window to collaborate. We need to come prepared. We have action items. We try to use the team initiated problem solving paradigm. So it's have your slides up there. You have a timekeeper, kind of keep everyone on track.
Yeah.
That's been really helpful. I also I have a Slack channel for most of my teams. Are y'all familiar with Slack? Slack's like an app you can get on your phone, and it just helps you don't get so many emails from on a thread of something.
Yes,
so you can be
too.
this school, these students, and then you can have a thread for each student. So the teams will have access, and it's just like a kind of ongoing thread where we can communicate, and that helps because there's so much communication happening on the outside of those meetings, and so when we can be there, it's not like let's just get everyone caught up about everything that's happened this last week. It's more about let's really celebrate all the success we've had and then focus on our action items. And so I think that's been helpful.
Yeah.
That took a long time for any team to get it going because there's resistance, right? And they're
so much.
I didn't get the invite to Slack, or what's this? And so I'm the type of person that I anticipate that there will be resistance, 100%. And I'm just looking forward to it. And my big thing is just leaning into the resistance and not being discouraged. It's not that people are personally not wanting to do this. They're confused about the technology or they, whatever it may be. And so it's just been fun. I feel when you can be patient with people and get them through that process, it just brings everyone together.
And they feel good once they figure it out. Once they master, I use Microsoft Teams a lot. They're I learned how to use it. I called you. Yeah, I got your message. So there's so much technology, and I had to learn that, I am a digital native, but more than half of my colleagues are not. So some of that can be aversive in a way that I don't understand. I'm I'm gonna get the app. I'm gonna do that right now. And I'll set it up. And they're just there's an app, and you show me how to do it. So just learning how to problem solve around that. And I know for me, I do have to work on boundaries because I usually want to help. And Aaron's like, you on that too? I'm like, yes, stop. But just learning, like, you know, this is what I can do for you. This is what it looks like realistically. And I remember at the school psych, it was so hard because the need is just so high, especially for mental health. So trying to figure, okay, I'm going to help you. I know for me, I would intervene a lot with MTSS. And I was very much the person that would kind of intervene on, okay, what's your tier 1 look like? And I would want to put that structure in place, and I would want to have that referral process. Like, what does that look like? How are we training staff? And I kind of had to figure out, like, you're probably going to be leading the PDs because you're the only one that understands this.
It's very true.
Yeah.
We have one, I'm on a couple teams with the school psych leads. Okay, are we doing this for tier 1? Are we doing this for tier 2? Okay, if not, we need to go back and this is what we need to do. I think that's invaluable because it's very hard for people to understand exactly what the tiers are all about and how to implement them. And to help the teachers implement them in the right way. So it's actually going to make a difference for the kids.
Yes. And like the data collection. And I'm looking at a lot of research that's saying that we don't educate really well around that and data analysis.
Very true.
So like you said, it's so powerful. You have to be patient. You have to understand that because we're all specialists and we know our niche. And they don't understand. They are looking to us, and we are going to be the ones to have to kind of come in as the problem solvers. And if I could go back in time and tell myself, like, this is what you'll be doing, a lot of it is going to be problem solving. You're supporting parents, you're supporting staff. And I remember in one district, all the principals had me on speed dial. Something was on fire. They just ran out the building. I need you right now. So I'm running. And, you know, that was me learning, like, this is your role. You're problem solving across. You're not just special education. You're helping across MTSS.
And not to get discouraged and just like you're like, for me, it's always helpful. Like thinking behaviorally, I'm always shaping people's behavior, right? Like it's a positive approach to it, and it helps because it's easy to get discouraged or get jaded or get frustrated when like things don't work well, and that doesn't drive outcomes.
Yes. So I always train on, okay, so kids need a nice little calm down room. Adults, we need a calm down room.
It's very true.
It's super true.
It's very true.
You're modeling a lot, and I train a lot on school climate, and it's just asking my staff, like, so do you want to come to work? If you don't want to come to work, they don't want to come to school either. So what does that look like, and what are we modeling? And I had one participant was like, Casey, I don't think I'm modeling that correctly. What's going on? And she was just like, my staff, they're mean. They're mean to each other. So I know that's an issue, and just kind of getting us to kind of reflect. And it's fun, like you said. It's fun to kind of play in that sandbox and be like, okay, so how do I do this? Do you think there are areas that we need to improve as far as our training and getting us to be ready for it? Because the waters we're swimming in are very complicated, especially right now in our current climate. So what do you think needs to be done in that area?
I have some thoughts, at least from the pre-service standpoint, from like a training perspective. I know that myself or soon will go to like the SLP class and talk about behavior management. We get 3 hours, right? So it's a very limited amount of time. It would be so fantastic if all the related service providers who impact students could have like a seminar. If you're going to work in schools, if you're going to be a nurse, going to be SLP, OT, whoever it may be, you have to come together for a seminar with a group of people, and you just talk about the issues. And it's not so much like I'm trying to hammer information into your brain, but more learning, approximating what you'll do in the real world. I feel like we need to give them those opportunities, or if not, how can we expect people just like hit the ground running and be successful?
You can.
I've heard it over at Utah State, their graduate program, they actually have started with this. So my grad student was telling me that during their clinic sessions, they will have multidisciplinary, the NPS.
MPSS,
That's right. So they'll have the school psych come in, and then they'll listen to them, and they will talk about like the students' caseload that that they're carrying out in the clinic, so that they're looking more holistic. So I think it depends on the university, but I think the requirements for, speech language pathology, audiology, school psychs, I think that there are changes coming, but it's slow. But I I see it coming.
Yeah, and I think the change has to happen at the university level. I mean, we're very siloed within our own department still, despite efforts on campus to be like work with other departments. And I think there's some faculty who are better at that than others. But I mean, how can we expect our students as they graduate to like even think that's the norm? It's like everything they remember from everyone else was like, here's the SOP department, here's the nursing department,
right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And with nursing, there's school nursing is a specialty within nursing.
Mm-hmm.
So to teach that in school, sometimes I go and talk at the universities. They get a little snippet, maybe an hour, of what school nursing is. But it's really, for our new school nurses that are coming in, is jumping in and getting their feet wet and asking questions.
Yeah.
That's the best way I've seen for school nursing.
Really?
We orient a lot and are there for questions.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to get in and see, because it's such a different setting than the hospital setting, the clinical setting.
Yes.
Right.
Totally
You're so
different.
right. Yes.
Right.
So to come over to the educational side from the clinical side, it's tough.
It is.
It's tough.
Yeah.
It's not tough in that you're working really hard. It's tough in finding your place.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Where is your place in the educational setting?
Yeah.
Because it's
And
huge.
school nurse.
Yeah, and you feel so small in your impact. I think as behavior analysts, they struggle with that too. It's like, where do we fit into this whole thing? And I think at times it's been like, I'll just decide what I think I do rather than talking to the team, which is problematic. But it's, I think to take that pause and realize that you can integrate within that community if you just take the time. It's so powerful.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think another challenge to that is because we've always looked for direction.
Mm-hmm.
So I've worked in 3 different school districts, and every school district I'll say, hey, this collaboration thing is a great idea. Principal, administrator of your kingdom.
I know.
Where do you want me to fit in?
Mm-hmm.
And I usually get this kind of this blank stare, like, you want what?
Yeah.
You okay? That sounds like a good idea, but I don't know. I don't know where you go.
I know.
I'm like, okay.
They do that with nursing too.
They do that with everyone.
Probably,
Everyone.
Yeah.
And I'm going through the admin program because I just really wanted to know, like, how are you trained? And their training it needs to catch up.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I just feel like the training matches the USA of like 50 years ago. And so like there's not a lot of emphasis on like that, multidisciplinary teams and, NCSS and special, and like a lot of it's leadership and budgeting and all that, and which is important, but I'm like, a lot of what school principals are doing in like district leadership is problem solving. So how are you equipping them for that?
Right.
And changing demographics and a high mental health need. I just saw a sad report yesterday talking about how millennials are going to die before Generation X because of mental health concerns. So they're gonna die before them. So Generation X is actually better off.
Right.
So how do we get them to understand like those needs rather than just the leadership components, which is important, but I think that there's other things that need to be added in, like the piece of your demographics, supporting your audience, and leading the charge. I don't think they always get that when they're pre-services, and then you're out, and then you're the leader, like you said, the kingdom, it's your kingdom,
that's right.
and you're sitting there with all these specialists, and they're like, so what do I do? Where do I go? And they're like, I don't know where to put you. Just don't cause any legal issues.
Right.
Very true.
Yeah,
Very
totally.
true.
And that's a big piece of it. I learned that a lot. The East Coast, I think, is coming, unfortunately. Sorry, Utah.
Yeah,
it's coming.
Behind, right?
Yeah.
They don't want this one to come though.
Yeah,
it's litigious. Yeah.
Oh yeah, because the East and the South it's a lot more going on over there. Yeah. So I think we have to, make sure everyone involved understands that. And how do you communication's everything. So communicating about your level of supports and interventions, and communicating that parents and the community can trust you, and yes, BCBAs can come in. This is what it looks like, because I feel like there's a lot of ambiguity there for us as a state.
Yeah.
So it's
it's being like knowledgeable about those things and being like leading the charge with that, like you said, like they have to assert themselves. Like people are looking to them to do those things, and it kind of creates some probably uncertainty, some ambivalence on the staff, if they look to their leader and they're like, oh.
I know, and then you do. Well, what do we do? We're just like, well, I create my own role. So,
I'll just like do what I think is right.
I think this is right.
Yeah. So we don't step on anyone's toes.
No.
So, and it's not necessarily that they don't know because they haven't had the explicit training on that, or maybe they haven't
had that experience in practice.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Sometimes they don't, depending on
Yeah.
where you are.
Yeah.
Well, and if we could educate administrators on what we do, I think they would access our skill set more.
Yes.
Agreed.
Yes.
Agreed.
We do like a marketing campaign for
Yes.
ourselves.
Yes.
Hi, want to sit down? This is what I do. Have some treats or something. It's going to be good. Yeah, seriously though. I mean, we have to be advocates for ourselves because if not, like, it's easy for everyone to get like lost in the dust of everything that's going on.
And you can be pigeonholed a lot. I know I was in school psych behavior analyst. Like, she does behavior, and if they're a difficult kid, and then once they realize there's certain skills, I'll call her because she can do unruly parents.
Right.
So you really gotta. That was all
Gotta promote yourself.
you do, and you gotta clearly outline, because this is how I can support you, and then they'll be able to, okay, I need you at this leadership meeting because I really think that I need to have you a part of this MTSS conversation, or what to do whenever there's a suicide or crisis intervention. Okay, I need you to help team this, or I need you to help write this policy because I need your lens. So you do, because if you don't, they don't know that you're there. And what I found was that, they created this without me, and then it's impacting me negatively, which usually was more special education referrals, or I had to okay, that's not how you assess for that one. So let me do the evaluation again because I'm questioning that area of eligibility, and I wanted to make sure that we're supporting those kids. Usually I run into this with children from culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds. Just thinking about those assessments and how we look at data. Do you feel if you're in the role to kind of bring up this next generation within your field, what skills do they need to have around this? Because it seems like it's a direction we're going, and it's gonna, as schools have more kids, they're gonna want teams like us to exist. So how can we equip those future generations?
That's a good question. I think as I think of our rising generation, what they need. They need the ability to communicate their wants and needs. I think that as much as that we have access to technology, I think that we need to step away from it when they're outside of school. I'm going to try to put this as humorous as I can because it's funny and sad at the same time. I'm always going to have a job because of technology. Yes. Because, and I guess, you guys as well, because I'm seeing more and more students not being able to identify the emotions that they're feeling because they're always on YouTube. They might see something funny, but no parent, no older sibling, no one's around to say, that what you're feeling right there is actually you're feeling scared.
To kind of label that,
this is that they're not getting that back and forth communication. Just on top of that, I've found that for every child, this is a study. I wish I could just tell you what was right off the top, but we're on the spot.
You're fine.
But for any child 3 to 6 months younger that spends more than 28 minutes on a device, they're taking a massive hit in their language scores, which then impact, of course, their IQ and everything else. And that's scary to me because you go to waiting rooms, you go to grocery stores, just anywhere, and you got some poor kid. And I say poor kid because they're not getting that social interaction. They're not looking around. They're looking at their blue screen. They're not antagonizing their mom and asking them for things, but their language is taking a hit, and that scares me. So that's why I say we've got to pull that technology away from them at least for several hours and have communication with caring, well, hopefully a caring, but at least an adult that can help identify certain things for them socially, building up their language and syntax, morphology, just that whole language component. So how to help to be determined. I mean, I don't have a solution at this point other than instead of a book or instead of a device, a book in front of that face. learn that print and text knowledge and the communication that they're sharing with that adult, and showing them, hey, these words actually have meaning, and these pictures have that are attached to it, that conveys that meaning as well.
Like now you just made me think back to our US conference, and our keynote talked a lot about that, mental health and social media and developing tools. She's like, because our immediate reaction is to run away. Like, we need to step away from technology. She said, however, it's part of the world you're living in. It's not going away. So how do we adapt and adjust to it? And she really gave a lot of good strategies on, okay, so how do we teach them and teach ourselves how to interact and engage with this technology in a way that's healthy. And I think that's something going forward. And I'm getting a lot of asking and requests for, hey, how do I do counseling, online counseling, which terrifies me as a school psychologist. I'm just that's not where my mind goes with counseling. It should be face-to-face, right?
It is face-to-face. It's online though, right?
And
I'm a telehealth researcher, so I'm
biased. I know, right? So I'm having to okay, so you can do this. Yeah. And my recommendations are always okay, make sure that whoever you're partnering with, they have the credentials they're supposed to have, and that you understand what you're getting into, and you understand consent. And the same things we would do in practice, the way we did back in the old days.
And the limitations, if you have crisis, if you're far away and someone says, I'm going to kill myself, you need to have a plan.
Exactly.
Because you can't keep them in your office.
So where does that, for us as practitioners, that responsibility, so if that happens, what do you do? So it's something I think that all of us are grappling with. And I know our national organization of school psychologists, they're sending out a lot of position statements on, okay, so we have telepractice. This is what this looks like right now. Be ready for these concerns, and here are your ethical responsibilities as a school psychologist. So it's changing. With technology, there's a lot of change. There's a lot of growth, a lot of room for growth. I think it's going to be helpful because of access as well.
But we have to teach the pragmatics around all this stuff, right?
Yes,
just like anything.
So get on that, Aaron.
Thanks. I know. By the end, I could look back and screw too many things up.
Well, and I think all this technology is great, but I think I would like to see more of, I would like the parent to see the kid.
Yeah.
I would like the parent to go, we need to go back to, can you just look at your kid and not Google online what maybe that chronic condition they have is, and you just take a minute and talk to your kid, or acknowledge what's going on with your kid, and be aware of what we have lost that.
Yeah, the awareness, being present.
Yeah, being present, and knowing who is your student, who is your child. What's right in front of you.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of parents at this point, they don't know the person right in front of them.
It takes effort, time.
Yeah, it takes effort and time.
Yeah.
And you can't get that immediate feedback. I'm gonna Google, I'm gonna get all these results, and then I'm gonna go to Facebook, and I'm gonna go to that parent group, and we're all gonna get all that feedback rather than just stopping what is going on? And my husband and I talk about this a lot because of his role. I have so many WebMD parents.
Yes.
And they come in just terrified.
It's very true.
And he's just that's not what's going on with your child. Your child is just typically developing. He's gonna annoy you. He's in middle school, that's what they do. Right. Stop over-diagnosing your kids.
Well, stop looking at that and just what can you do with the person in front of
be
you.
Empathic, right?
Yeah, because even if you don't have those labels, you have those behaviors, right? So how do we support them with those behaviors? He's going to be impulsive, so how do we help him problem solve around? Okay, you're going to be impulsive. This is what you do. This is what I do. Dad has the same issue. So rather than giving, because I think we always want, okay, so you have this label, therefore this, right? It's the symptoms you're concerned about. So let's problem solve around those symptoms.
I see this a lot around gastric issues. Because a lot of gastric issues, especially in the older secondary kids, have to do a lot with anxiety or what's going on their phone. And when I talk to parents about, okay, put all that down, quit looking on Google. What is happening? What is happening with your kid daily? What can we do maybe just daily to make it better?
Little steps.
Totally. We've lost that.
Yeah, and I think, the parents too, probably aren't recognizing their own stress, their own maybe mental illness that they have, and seeking out the support so they can be effective parents to their kids, because they're probably engaging in the similar behaviors. And we have to disrupt that, or we're going to have generations and generations of people who don't know how to teach social emotional skills to children, support their kids when they have these issues. And I see those things as kind of like the pressing issue. Like how do we affect everyone? And so my mind, of course, goes to, well, they're already on social media and all this stuff. We need to get more therapeutic services through Facebook posts and Twitter posts and things like that.
I hate that.
I know. I do.
It makes you cringe. I felt it too.
I
Got it.
I know.
Yeah.
After school, stop doing activities.
Yeah.
Go for a walk
Yeah.
with your kid.
Yeah.
Maybe change the diet. Maybe let's do whatever for tonight instead of that, and then maybe we all read together and they go to bed early.
Yeah.
I love
And they look at me like,
What are those things?
They're like, what is
that's a great idea.
Yeah.
what planet
Just like
is she
slowing it
from?
down, you know,
Yeah.
and just taking it back to the basics before we had like tablets and phones that we were,
That's
you know,
true.
because we survived for a pretty long time without all that
Without it,
technology,
yeah.
right? As
Right.
humans, so like,
Yeah.
we should be able to survive still without it. And I see it as more of like adjunctive, like do those things, and then we realize you're also on social media, so I'm gonna like input, like, you know, incidentally feed you some information there
Yeah.
too.
I don't know, I don't trust Facebook.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, and social media is
I'm
a
struggling with
dark
it right
hole.
now.
I know.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
struggling with all that too.
Yeah.
Instagram, Facebook.
Yeah,
And it changes, and it's
It is.
TikTok,
TikTok,
now.
yeah,
and I'm
of
just like,
course.
what are my nieces and nephews?
It's too much.
I can't.
Too much.
Every year
Yeah.
there's something new that I need to learn about for my students. And to communicate with my family, apparently.
Yeah.
So thank you, all of you. I really appreciate your discussion and everything that you do. It's really impactful. Please fight the good fight. We need people like you.
Of course.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah.
All right. I want to make sure that he gets the recording.
So what's the